I was so sure I was going to enjoy this production of The Umbrellas of Cherbourg by Kneehigh Theatre that I made it a Valentine's Day treat, and we took a 200-mile trip to Leicester's Curve Theatre to see it. I enjoyed Brief Encounter very much, and our son hasn't stopped raving about his school trip to see Kneehigh's production of The Red Shoes. In the programme, director Emma Rice describes the passionate, charming and persuasive phone calls she received from Michel Legrand after he had seen her production of Brief Encounter and was persuading her to revive it for the stage. She describes her involvement in this project in terms of a seduction and love affair. Looking at YouTube clips of the original film, I can instantly see how you could fall in love with it. It's got a captivating charm and originality, striking colours and wonderful sung dialogue in French that go together to create something really unusual and memorable. All the versions I can find are subtitled rather than dubbed, and there's a reason for that. It sounds fabulous. I've often heard serious opera buffs insist that arias sound better in Italian or German than English, and I've heard singers and lyricists talk about how different vowel sounds come across in different registers of the voice. Suddenly I can see their point. You only have to listen to clips from the soundtrack of the French film in French and compare it with what's going on in this show to see what I mean. On stage, setting it in France isn't enough. The production does a very, very good job of making us believe we're in a seedy French port even before the curtain goes up, and Les Brotherston's set and costumes have versatility and style. But the dialogue comes across as absolutely pedestrian. On top of that, the plot, possibly a bit daring and topical in the 1960s, looks predictable and tame compared with the sophisticated twists that modern audiences are used to from TV. Kneehigh are brilliant storytellers, and this comes across as a key driver in everything they do. There's pace and invention and strong performances from a focused ensemble, but at points you feel as if they're working too hard to signpost a story whose outcomes the audience has already anticipated. Key principles for Kneehigh listed in the programme are generosity, vulnerability, ambition, bravery, anarchy and instinct. Trying to analyse the curious fact that this piece works so well in French but not in English, I think of these adjectives again. French is a generous, flowing language which really lends itself to emotional outpouring. The way you shape your face to pronounce the words makes you look vulnerable and expressive, and when you hear a few bars sung in French by compere cabaret artiste Meow, you'll understand that I'm not just being pretentious. It's at this point where we at last engage emotionally. Because Kneehigh are so good at storytelling, I think this would work in French. We'd definitely get the gist. I don't think the translation helps because it's in a sort of transatlantic English from a stage version of 1979. As there's no speaking apart from Mew's engaging warm-up routines, there's no scope for witty, crackling dialogue or jokes that I'm sure Joanna Riding would have made the very most of in the part of Madame Emery. She does very well, of course, as do all the cast, but you don't really engage with the characters. The lovers' scenes are well acted and sung by Carly Bawden, Andrew Durand, Cynthia Erivo and Dominic Marsh. And because it's in English and much of it played out in 1950s backstreet setting with muscular dancers very much part of the action, I thought of West Side Story. But that was a really unfortunate comparison because it made me long for Bernstein's incomparable musical variety and Sondheim's witty lyrics. This piece came 7 years after West Side Story, but there's little variety from accordion, horn, harp, piano, sax, flute, bass, muzak here. You've heard so much of it by the time the iconic "I Will Wait For You" theme comes in, it's almost lost on your ear. Watching the principals copulate awkwardly while sliding down a ramp at this point didn't help. And where were the violins? There wasn't a single one. I'm no expert, but I really felt that this missed a string section. There are, of course, some joyous Kneehigh touches and a wonderfully laid-back dance routine that you feel everyone in the audience would secretly like to be out of their seats joining in with. The transfer of this production to the Gielgud Theatre has already been announced, and ticket prices are high. It's due to run from March until October. If I were the producers, I'd draft in some violins and cellos. I'm sure that's an awful lot of work reorchestrating and quite expensive, but it would be so nice. Plus, I'd take the really bold move of putting this back into the French language. I know that doesn't sound like a very commercial decision, but it's a quirky one, and that's what we love Kneehigh for, is quirkiness. I'm sure Kneehigh will wow us again and again for years to come, but I'm sorry that for many people their first taste of this wonderful Cornish company will be disappointing compared to their past triumphs. If you've already booked, go and enjoy. Better to arrive with low expectations and be surprised than turn up with massively high ones and be let down. There's much that I haven't mentioned that you'll enjoy about this, and Kneehigh are always worth supporting.